Welcome, beautiful soul. On this episode of Where's the Nuance, hosted by me, El Niño, I'm joined by Taylor Amrani. She's the creator of the popular online pages Life by Taylor on TikTok and Instagram, and the host of the very popular The Life by Taylor podcast, where she shares her personal insight and wisdom surrounding self-help, spirituality, relationships, and pretty much life. She's also the mastermind behind the emerging program called the Social Media Method, designed to help artists, spiritual creators, conscious humans, and everyone alike show up authentically online without all the fake, fluffy ego masking. Taylor is the definition of an embodied spirit. She practices what she preaches, and she's held an eclectic life that stretches from the Israeli military all the way to the Beverly Hills, TikToking her wisdom and insight, now years down the line, hosting her own group programs, leading speaking events on purpose, and helping people embrace their authenticity in their imperfect imperfections. This episode you're about to hear, we dive into the nuance surrounding personal truths, the paradox of knowing who you are by accepting you never really know who you are, hearing more about her story and how her search for a guru in India actually led to her finding a guru in a much closer place. She lights up my life, and I hope this conversation will do the same for you. Taylor Amrani from Life by Taylor, the popular podcast, the popular page, and a dear friend who's inspired me in many ways to take up the mantle in my own life regarding guiding, coaching, posting more authentically online. And I know you're also building out a program to help people do that. And you know what? You've inspired and helped me do that without the program in many ways. So it's truly something that I know you're going to do an amazing job. Thank you for being here today on Where's the Nuance?
Thanks for having me.
So for anyone who is listening and goes, who is this Taylor? Life by Taylor. Could you give yourself a quick little description of who you are, what you're doing, and what inspires you to show up and create online?
Wow. Who am I? So I'll be really cliche and say that it's really hard for me to define myself in general, but I would say the present Taylor. I've learned because I've watched back on things that I've defined myself as in the past and have grown in many ways. But the present Taylor is really just committed to, and always I think has been committed to seeking her own truth and following it relentlessly and not fearlessly, but despite the fear, willing to lose everything, to go all in on that. And to just bring people with me on that journey, to really share every layer I peel to get closer to truth and share that with whoever is at the same parallel timeline as me in their own world. And that's what has been driving what I do for the past almost 4 years now. So every part of my journey has been a different layer, has attracted a different audience, has spoken to different minds and different hearts. And that's just what I'm continuously doing. But today, I would say that the truth that I'm coming to is also that I don't need to talk about the truth anymore. We'll talk about that maybe in this episode. But yeah, just liberation, freedom, truth, and sharing with others.
Beautiful. And I think it's very emblematic that is the truth that you're holding these days. And it's honestly what I find so inspiring, because I think my philosophical approach to truth and spiritual enlightenment and spiritual journeys is that we all have our own divine wisdom, and we really should be looking within ourselves to unlock the channels to that energetic source, to that guidance, and not look outside of ourselves. And it's awesome that you are like a living example of that, and you really practice what you preach. So it's amazing. And you said you got into this journey 4 years ago. Was there a climactic moment that you can draw us back into, and perhaps any lessons or key points, mistakes perhaps, that you've learned along the way that could help other people perhaps avoid them and or learn from them?
Wow, definitely plenty of mistakes and plenty of painful lessons, or else you're not doing it right. If you're not willing to see that, if you don't think you've made mistakes, then I would say walk back, go start from the beginning, walk again. Wow. So I think my personal spiritual journey started about 5 years ago, actually, when I was in a very difficult relationship that just brought up all of the demons inside of me. I think relationships are a gift that we're given that really just hold the toughest mirror in front of us to show us all parts of ourselves. And even toxic relationships, really reveal to you like, wow, this is how much I value myself and how little I value myself. And wow, how did I get here? And what attracted me to this person in this experience? And why did my soul choose this? That was the question that kept coming up for me. How did I end up in this situation? Like, really, I don't understand. And in that relationship, I just started to this answers the question that we were talking about before we recorded about Oprah. I started to just listen to podcast episodes and found a lot of comfort in listening to Oprah's Super Soul podcast episodes because she would talk to really prominent figures, but more about their spiritual life and their deeper inner truth, and hearing these words to things that I always felt intuitively, like making it make sense. And I was like, wow, this is like how I've always felt deep down, but I didn't know that these have terms and ways and words, and this is common and people know about these things. And it really got me out of that relationship, honestly, that podcast. But I also remember in that experience saying, I want to do this for other people. Like this podcast has so much power. It's literally changed my life. And these quotes on Instagram that I'm stumbling upon in these darkest moments, they have power. Like they are helping me. I'm saving them. I'm coming back to them. And it's so easy to look at things like social media content and say, oh, this is just bullshit. It's all just content. It's all just social media. But it really made a huge impact on me. So I realized, wow, there's a power to this. And I feel like the hero's journey is just once you've walked a certain path and gotten out of a certain slump, you want to go back and help other people. So once I had that experience, it was COVID. I'd lost my job. I was sitting at home all day long and was like, what can I do with my free time? How can I fill my day up with being of service to others? Because I recognized that would help me feel less alone, depressed, anxious about life. Started blogging, making content with no intention to turn this into a business whatsoever, just out of pure enjoyment and pleasure. And I was helping people, and then people started to reach out to me, and then it just went on and on from there until today, 4 years later. And now it is a full-time business podcast, on all platforms making content, but it never was the plan, which is really cool.
No, I remember interacting with your content during that COVID time, and I similarly I found myself sharing things that, quite frankly, I had been invested in the at least intellectual and philosophical journey around spirituality and personal development for a few years since I was 18. So that was like 5 years at the time. But I think my own personal spiritual life was still very stagnant in many ways. I wasn't necessarily totally embodying the stuff I was studying. But I saw your presence online, and that's what I remember when I was like, oh, I need to talk to her. And you were like, yeah, I've been on this spiritual journey for like a couple years. And I was like, wow, but you have so much like wisdom around it. And I think that's because you truly were, like you said, you were already kind of living and embodying a lot of these values and truths, but you just hadn't found the language to, to draw these abstract concepts into more tangible words and ideas, more drawn out. And I want to touch on the thing you said about social media, because this is a conversation that's actually come up in my own life a lot. I have some very conscious and spiritual friends, but they also live lifestyles that are not normal comparative to the rest of the world. They're anti-social media. They're quite critical of the common society. And I share some of those sentiments, understandably. But, my friend was saying, but don't you think that you being online and making social media content, you're kind of being part of the problem? Because this stuff is what alienates people from each other, and it continue, and then you just feed into the cycle of making social media more powerful and pulling more attention. And my response was, well, look, I'm not going to pretend it's not a real place. I'm not going to pretend. I can't just close my eyes to the reality that there are many people on there who are lost, as I was. I used to spend lots of time on social media. I'm still on there a decent amount, and as such, it's a new environment. And whether it's not the physical environment, that's the God's creation, and this is just the digital one, that's our creation. Although I would argue us being made in the image of God is technically also a creation of God. But
agreed.
That's my yeah. How do you deal with these kind of perhaps criticisms or these takes around, here you are being a spiritual mentor of sorts, but you're online, you're feeding into a perhaps vicious cycle that steals and captivates more attention into a space that might alienate people. How do you
Mm.
navigate that?
Well, let's start with the fact that we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for social media. And
Yeah.
social media also brings people together from different walks of life who share common beliefs. Some are more toxic and more harmful to the human soul, others elevate the human soul. I have found some of the most incredible friends and opportunities and people through sharing my authentic truth online and drawing people in to who I truly am versus the community of people that I was raised with and grew up around and that were just in close proximity to me. So social media is a neutral thing. And everything in life is neutral. Everything in life is neutral until we place our own judgments onto it. I see social media as something that is heavily consumed with negative and toxic and fear induced content. However, the solution isn't to have all of the conscious people who want to spread their light and their art and their ideas off of social media. It gives more power to what is predominantly on these platforms. And I believe that that is why I'm so passionate now to really give people like myself and like your conscious friends the tools and the support and the guidance to get their voices out there and to share their light online to really water down and balance out the what is on these platforms. You know, I see wow, I think it's so sad that we really see social media and associate it with only the worst of it. And today I'm really conscious about who I follow and what's on my newsfeed. And there are people who inspire me in ways that really I would have never been exposed to the ideas of like liberated womanhood and, you know, conscious community and how to be more eco-friendly. So many things that I follow teach me so much about how to be a better human in this world. And every girl I see, or every man I see, every woman I see online who is spreading these concepts and this light and raising the consciousness of humanity through this tool, it is simply a tool. I tell myself, wow, we need another 100,000 million of these people on here because whether we like it or not, people are on there. So I give the analogy that it's like saying, well, this world has darkness. I should just kill myself. It's the same. It really is the same. Well, this world is really dark and there's a lot of terrible things happening. So I should just kill myself. That would solve all my problems. And therefore, I wouldn't have to be involved in it. And therefore, I'm just going to disengage. So, like you said, social media is another world, it's another environment. And leaving it to the evil or leaving it to the darkness of the world to just be spread and grow on there is, in my opinion, a little bit cowardly, but also just sad because we need more people to use this tool to do good in this world. And it is a powerful tool to do so. So,
Amen. I love that
that's my
response.
opinion.
I used once the analogy to a friend of mine. Like, although I know it's a limited one, I was like, well, look, man, I say that there's a war for the souls out there, man. And whether it's a conscious one or an unconscious one, I'd like to participate. And I think a way to do that is to spread what I hope is ways to help people acknowledge the way that they can free themselves from the limitations of their mind and, the kind of content I put, because I do believe that. I love the way you've worded all of that. That was really brilliant. Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah. And I will also just say that if it's not for you, I respect that too.
Straight up.
Totally respect that, but to discredit the entire space of social media because it doesn't fit you or it doesn't speak to you it just doesn't, it's just not,
It's a little
not
judgmental. It's a little judgmental.
Just a little judgmental. Just a little.
Speaking of judgments and judgmental, I know you have a very popular podcast, Life by Taylor, and you've had a lot of amazing episodes, of which I've watched almost all of them, or listened to almost all of them, rather. And you talk a lot
Thanks.
about and you talk a lot about, learning to love yourself and not being so judgmental and so hard on yourself and accepting yourself at different points and almost saying like, letting go of the need to have to be certain around who you are. Can you bring us into what you meant? I think that was the most recent one, right? One of the more recent ones. Can you bring us into that concept around loosening up your attachment, I guess, to needing to know who you are?
Oh, I would say this is at the core of liberation and enlightenment, is to just, and what I'm currently going through heavily, which I will say, I think in my podcast, I don't even talk about these things. It's just a byproduct of the way I describe my current reality is I'm constantly in radical self-acceptance, no matter how many times I change my mind or change my view or location or lifestyle. I'm just always meeting myself where I am.
Mm.
And there is still, I still noticed that I did have these heavy attachments to a narrative that I have to prove something to my father, a narrative that I am going to be a spiritual mentor. And that is going to be the way I meet Oprah one day and do this and do that. And letting go of the things that I have been like non-negotiables about my identity has been scary, but also very, very liberating and very exciting to realize, wow, even when we define ourselves as free and open-minded, there are certain parts of you that you would be scared as fuck to let go of. And when you're able to, you don't have to completely let go of them, but leave some space around them always for them to change, for them to evolve, for you to change your mind, with the biggest dreams you have right now and the image you hold so firmly about your future and what you want is great, but leave room to change your mind and leave room for life to prove you otherwise. It's so important because we get to this place where we get what we really want and we're like, but I thought I wanted that, but I thought this was supposed to be the plan. And that's where we create our own suffering, and get in our own way. So to me, I believe that I'm starting to learn. Wow, I actually talked about this today, which I think is really important for people who are on a more spiritually advanced, let's say.
Yeah.
The more aware we are, the more we believe that we can look at our present reality and avoid mistakes, pain, error. We're like, well, I know better now. So like all the things that I've learned until now, let me apply them and make sure. But that's not it. That is not it, because even with your highest self being present, you have to fuck up. You're going to have to make mistakes. You're going to have to experience pain and hardship and all the shit. But the more aware we become, the more we think we have control. No, it's not true.
Rather, it's, can you expand your broader awareness in such a space that you are broadly aware and now have total acceptance of the realities that might arise, aka, the universal law, change is constant, and in that change, I can guarantee you that shit hurts, man. Like, it's because that means things won't always go to your expectations, right? So you're right.
Exactly.
It's this weird thing that as you develop more awareness, you actually do develop, let's say, more power over your life. It's true. That's not
Yes.
true. But then your attachment to the idea that you have more power over your life will then lead to a kind of controlling nature, which then inhibits you from truly flowing with the dynamic nature of life. And you get caught between that. Yeah, because you're like, oh, like, because you do.
Yeah,
like, I don't
wanna... you forget that you have to have your human experience with your spiritual growth. Okay. You cannot override the human experience with your spiritual awareness. The human experience is still going to be essential. It's going to be the experience, and the spiritual awareness is there to accept, to, make the most out of the human experience. But the human experience is always going to be messy and painful and uncomfortable and unpredictable. And we can't try to stop ourselves from having it, which many people do, and therefore get in their own way in many ways.
Wow. Not to make this a self-therapy session, but you said something around letting go of even the attachments we hold around ourselves and whatnot. And I thought, something that's come up very recently in my life is that I still hold that there's a part of me that isn't good because of the fact that I, once abused drugs and alcohol and perhaps treated people in ways that wasn't good. But then by holding on to that, like, see, you have a bit of bad in you. Like, there's some bad in you. Like, don't forget that. It's actually inhibiting my capacity to really grow into who I am, because it's like, who I am isn't that, because obviously I live in this present moment. But man, it's been like a hard thing to realize, because I was using, like you said, I was using my spiritual experience to be like, well, I'm so totally engaged in the present moment, I'm just gonna ignore that shit. Like spiritual bypassing, exactly. Like pretty much being like, I'm
Yeah.
so present and so divinely present, and I have a great present life. But really, it's like, yeah, but why won't you look back? And it's like, well, because the way that I look back is with judgment and with
Right.
this like very beholden. I was like, having this idea that I was beholden to, like, oh, I'm bad, and that's why I can never drink
Yeah.
again, and I can never do these things. And I was holding a lot of conservatism around my actions in a lot of ways, and
Mhm.
so thanks for that. It's
Well,
a
I think it's about making space for all versions of you to exist. It's I've had to look back and really go back and pick up certain versions of myself and remind myself that she belongs here too. She
Mhm.
deserves love too. She's worthy too. This version of me, the one that I think I could just like hide away and like pretend never existed, it's denying a part of myself today, because really the really terrible Taylor that was a bad student and got arrested and was stealing and all these crazy things. Um, I was also bad, whatever
Yeah.
that means. I wouldn't exist without her. So I've like really just accepted that radical acceptance isn't just of the present moment. It's of
Mhm.
every single version of myself in the past, within myself and outside of myself. I feel like the people who trigger me the most are versions of past Taylor. And when I offer them my acceptance, I bring her back in also. I'm like, oh, you deserve love too, past Taylor, in other human form.
You talked about that before on a podcast around triggers and how you see them as a
Mm.
good thing, and I think a lot of people would go, "Fuck that! I hate being triggered. Those sons of bitches, just like they're just disrespecting me or my boundaries." Like,
Mm.
how do you navigate triggers in a more meaningful, perhaps, or helpful context?
Triggers are the biggest gift in the spiritual journey, because you can hmm, you can la di da and like, oh, I'm gonna pick and choose what things I'm gonna work on now, and what speaks to me now, and what sounds fun to work on today. But triggers will slap you in the face, slap you in the face, and show you where the real work needs to be done. And triggers are a direct path to where you are not free. And when you start to see it that way, but like really see it that way, really just sit with that every time you're triggered, you unlock new levels of yourself that would take years of therapy, in my opinion. When I recognized, oh, every time I'm around X people, I feel insecure and I feel nervous and I feel X, Y, whatever. Instead of focusing on them and like avoiding them at all costs, I sit with myself and I ask myself, like, what is it? Like, what's going on here? Out of like really curiosity. And I go on this little investigation within myself, and I get to the bottom of it and I'm like, damn, people pay a lot of money to go to therapy for this. But really, if you it's true. If you sit with those triggers and really just put all of the accountability on yourself and all the focus on yourself, it reveals to you things that really either very heavy psychedelic drugs or lots of years of therapy are required to get to those types of breakthroughs. But a lot of people get triggered and they're focused on what triggered them, unfortunately. And they get triggered again and again and again for the same thing. And they don't take the responsibility to look at, where am I not free in this situation? How can I free myself here?
Wow, that's
Yeah.
that's how that's some good advice. And
Yeah.
speaking of freeing ourselves and whatnot, I know that you took a journey because at one point in your spiritual development, there came a time where you felt that perhaps you could expand your development if you could
Guidance.
learn from a mentor, if you could
Yeah.
receive the kind of guidance that you were kind of offering people. And I think, look, in that idea is not inherently bad.
Mm.
A lot of people have had incredible spiritual mentors. Some of the biggest inspirations of my life, like Paramahansa Yogananda, had a guru and was a guru to many people. Um, but your experience with a guru in India wasn't necessarily a positive one, was it? And I,
No.
I know about this story, but I was hoping you could kind of retell this because I think there's a powerful lesson in here in regards to externalizing your power and the dangers that comes when we do that. So
Mhm.
if you would.
Sure. I'll share a behind the scenes part of the story that no one knows, because
Ooh.
it was too sensitive to share before. And today I feel more at peace with it. So there was a girl that I know personally, And she's like TikTok famous, Instagram famous for doing like comedic skits or whatever and making fun of people. And I was in LA at the time, and I bumped into her, and she asked me what I'm doing in life, and I told her, and she took it upon herself to create a character, a character of a life coach named Sailor. And she started making all of these videos, like making fun of my work and me. And basically just like imagine all of your inner demons and all of the imposter syndrome being in real life. Like people are like, no one's thinking that. Like, don't worry, it's all in your head. But then it was like very much not in my head. And all of my past friends, like people who I'm not friends with, commenting on it, very much like a bullying. Like I really felt bullied and attacked. And by the way, I will follow up on what I said about triggers. I was so triggered by this, and I realized how much easier it is for me to just hate her than to focus on freeing myself from being triggered by this and seeing this as an opportunity, really as an opportunity, because at first I was very triggered. Of course, I was very upset. I would cry about it. It was really hurtful. And then I walked myself to a place of acceptance. However, in the pit, in the peak of my insecurity of that experience, I started to think to myself, oh, I have to go get a guide, a mentor. I have to go learn. I have to go get some sort of credentials, whatever. That's when I started Googling. This is why every decision that's based in fear is probably not leading you to something great. But in that fear, like really deep in that fear and that insecurity and unworthiness, I started Googling and really frantically searching for guidance and certificate and blah, blah, blah from my insecurity. Stumbled upon this school in India, decided, okay, I'm just going to follow my intuition. First one I saw that like sounded legit, signed up, paid the deposit. And months later, I find myself in India looking for a teacher, looking for a guide, looking for validation, basically, so that I can somehow in my head, like quiet the noise of the judgment that I was facing outside of myself. And I'll tell a little bit about the experience, but only to get to the end and realize, oh, God really took me all the way here to realize that I didn't need this at all. This is not what I needed. I needed to accept myself and realize that it wasn't about me. And I am my guru, right? I am my biggest teacher. So the experience in India was very traumatizing, but also it was transformational because I went to India to get guidance and to get a teacher and to get all these things, but I left with a more solid center, really a more clear relationship with myself and what I can do and who I am and what I can offer myself and what a mentor and guide should be and what I do want in that. And I have them today, people I trust. But my experience in India was so crazy. I don't even know where to start, but let's just put it shortly and say that, I went there very naively, open-hearted. And that was a huge lesson for me too. I was someone who was like, everyone is good. There's good in everyone, which I will say, I still believe there is good in everyone, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't protect yourself from certain people, that you shouldn't be careful about who you are vulnerable with. Let's just put it that way. And that was really hard for me. I really didn't want to believe that there were people that have dark intent, okay, that have intention that is malicious or intention that is harmful. I didn't want to believe it. I was very much like, no, live with an open heart. Everything is love and light. Another big bullshit trap of spirituality, that everything is love and light. That's also not true. That's a really slippery slope to a really, really dark place. I promise, if I could save people from going there, that's my message for you. Everyone's good. Everyone's good. And despite the fact that my intuition was telling me to be careful of this guy and that I shouldn't trust the teacher and that he's not giving good vibes at all, I let that spiritual like intellect override that inner feeling, that inner knowing that this is not a safe place. This is not a place I want to be vulnerable in. And long story short, my intuition was right. And I learned the hard way. Of course, thank God, I was not physically harmed, but the teacher was sexually harassing girls in the school and spiritually manipulating all of us at certain points. I really felt like I was being watched. And when I left there, I felt like I was looking behind my back until I landed in the next country. I didn't feel safe. So it was a really crazy experience, but I'm very at peace with why I needed it. And
Yeah.
it gave me what I really needed, not what I wanted. It gave me what I really needed. So that's
You,
more on the story.
that's awesome. Yeah, you found inner authority because you were forced into a place where you began doubting it so heavily, but it was like a necessary revelation of recognizing how much this person had triggered you. But don't get me wrong, that is hella triggering. Like, to think
Yeah.
that somebody with a platform who knows people who know you has created a character based on you to make fun of you is the worst kind of bullying possible. It
Yeah.
really is, because on the internet there's no bounds and there's no limitations to the extent. But then somehow the fact that experience pulls you away from yourself, creates a sense of self-doubt, leads you towards an experience which then forces you to recognize, I cannot doubt myself, because when I began doubting myself, I gave this individual trust that I intuitively knew I shouldn't be given this person, because
Mhm.
I have intuition, I have power. Like, I'm not like, but we forget
Yeah.
that stuff because people make fun of us, right? Or whatever it is. We get triggered. We make a mistake, and suddenly our conception that we have inner authority is lost, and that
Yes.
comes at a great cost. It really does.
Yes.
But oh man, that story gets me, because I remember you shared something around how, he was calling you special and that there was something special with you. And I can only
Mhm.
imagine, me being me, if I was with a spiritual mentor and he said that I was special, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm the next guy. Like,
Yeah.
this is it. Because who doesn't want validation? And even in the
Yes.
spiritual realm, oh my God, validation from someone who's spiritually acclimated, or like
Right. Advanced.
celebrated. Yeah, it's like, now this must be the best kind of validation, so it's a very interesting
Yeah.
journey,
I mean, that part was also interesting to see how much I felt like I needed that from someone else.
Mm.
And once I saw the truth of who this man is, I realized, okay, well, that just lost all of its value. And do I still feel special though? Like, can I find a way to still feel talented and wise and, validated in my experience and my journey and the work that I do, even now when I realize that this man is a piece of shit. Um, and that was the journey. So
How do
again,
you, if you don't mind me asking, honestly,
yeah.
like, do you have something that helps ground you within your own internal validation? Is there any practice that you can recommend, or is it just a simple, like,
I
radical
mean, I think it
acceptance?
always comes back to that like awareness. And there definitely, I think in the beginning, it was harder for me, the imposter syndrome and the who am I to be doing this and to be charging and thank God it's gotten much better. And just the overwhelming feedback I get and love I get from people who I help has really helped me take things into perspective. I think also hiring people like me and seeing how much they can help me and how much they have helped me has helped me realize, no, there's a lot of value in this. And there are people like me doing similar work to me, changing my life, really, who are younger than me, some who aren't certified at all, who I just trust, who I have some sort of soul.
Oh no.
And again, just coming back to even the top of the chain is human, and I'm human. And all the parts that I see of myself, like I'm judging myself, knowing myself fully or almost fully, it's not there for me to compare myself to the outer shell of the experts. It doesn't make
Mhm.
sense. I really ground myself in trying to see myself in the people I admire the most and see everyone at eye level, my students and my mentors.
You'll
That
offend people
helps
like
me.
that. You'll offend people. It's ironic. I love that practice where I go like, everyone's an equal to me, but it'll offend the ego that believes it's better than you,
Yeah.
because it's like, how dare you look at me as an equal, because they don't think that, they really believe they're better. And it does bring in something where I wanted to bring in a bit of a criticism of the therapeutic realm in general,
Mhm.
because I think sometimes, people who like they got their master's in counseling or whatever. Now they're therapists. They go online and they're like, they have this like negative view of anyone else who's doing anything that's kind of therapeutic in a sense or helpful or guidance because they don't have the same education.
I'm like, wow, thank you for showing me your true intention in this world.
Exactly. And then you also see, I can look at people's lifestyles, and perhaps that's a little bit of a judgment on my part, but I also think it's just the kind of things where I hold my values and I go, these individuals aren't even doing anything within their lives that I admire or I value. These people don't treat their health like they don't eat in any manner that I respect. They don't move their body in any manner that's inspiring. They don't read anything that's truly like meaningful. They don't put any personal practice. They just went to school. And I go, that's great. It's not that school doesn't have a value, but I do find that the most important thing is what you talked about, is a deep recognition of self. Like, do you know yourself on a deep level? Because when you know yourself at a deep level, that gives you a kind of capacity, like you said, to see yourself in other people and provide a kind of guidance and a reflection.
And for them to see themselves in you, right? When I meet you as an equal, then, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way thing. And when I get on a call or when I'm teaching a group and very quickly they realize that I am one with them and I am a part of the journey with them and I am just the narrator truly of this information, it is the most powerful experience for everyone involved, including myself, to see myself in all of these people I'm teaching and for them to see themselves in someone who they put on a pedestal, all of a sudden come down off the pedestal. It allows them to believe in themselves, to go after their dreams, to do what they want, it's really expansive. So that's like the core of everything I do. And I think that even with, therapists and psychologists, I respect them. I respect the work they do. I'm sure there are people who would never hire someone like me or you who need someone to talk to and someone to listen to them and to have professional advice from or guidance from. God bless them all. And my intention is for people to feel good and to do good in life and to live well. So I'm glad that there are so many different variations and versions of help that we can offer people in this world. Like, I don't need to discredit anyone else to justify my existence and my role in this world, right?
You said something earlier, and it's a quote that I wrote down after a really big psychedelic experience a few months ago, where it was like a download, what they call it these days.
Yeah.
But it was, the truth needs no defense. And it was like this voice talking to me. We're like, hey, just say your truth, man. Like, show up, say it. It doesn't need a defense. You don't need to keep trying to defend it. It doesn't need you to defend it. If you feel the need to defend it, that's your own insecurity. That's your issue, buddy. The truth itself doesn't need your defense. Just say it.
That's actually one of my favorite quotes from A New Earth. It says the truth needs no defending.
Is that what that's from?
Yeah.
That must have come back years later.
Yeah, it's in there.
Damn.
It's one of my favorite ones and I come back to it a lot. And so I will say also about the self-validating experience for me is I had someone once tell me like, Taylor, have you ever just felt good holding a puppy or a baby? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, that's what you do for people. You don't need to explain it in words. Like, someone who has a clear vessel and is carrying light and love is healing even without speaking. And Eckhart Tolle, when he started his journey as a counselor and helping people, he literally would just sit in front of them, embodying radical presence in their presence and let them solve their own problem. So that also helped me realize, like, it's actually not something I have to do. It's about who I am in the presence of this human. That is what I offer.
Dude, Taylor, I don't want to degrade my services, but that's literally how I describe my work to my friends. Like, it's just like, I just allow them to see themselves. And and it's like, because my fundamentally at the core of our philosophy, I think, is I'm like, I'm not here to become their source of power and wisdom.
No.
I want them to leave here and be like, all right, I think I pretty much got this. Like, sure, we all stumble, we all trip, we can all expand and learn. But it's really like you said, it's like, I want to empower them. I don't want them to have to come back years and years on end. Like, that'd be a little silly. Don't get me wrong. Exactly. Perhaps I'll create new offerings and whatnot.
No, it doesn't matter. Also, if someone wants just to have another taste of what that feels like, that's fine, but to offer something that is just it's not, it doesn't require so much effort, really.
No.
The more effort I put into trying to solve someone's problem, the more I'm feeding into their problem, actually, is I'm making their
Ooh,
problem
more
more
real.
legit and more real. And I've realized, like, oh, when this person isn't believing in themselves, hold, can I be a steady base of the truth in that presence of the bullshit their mind is telling them? And it's hard because, like, my own insecurities are triggered by my clients' insecurities. And I'm like, oh, wait, maybe that is true, at least in the beginning of my journey. And I would feed into it and I would try to, like, solve it for them intellectually. And then I was like, no, 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 no. Like, don't feed into their ego's bullshit either. Like,
That's a hard one. I would say from my own experience working with clients now
very,
is I want to I don't want to invalidate their experience of reality. But I also
right.
don't want to feed into a reality that's clearly harming them and clearly pulling them into narratives that are like
Yes.
destructive and not really objectively real. Like they're just as objective as any other narrative they could be pulling from A, B, and C.
Right.
So it is a nuanced place of where I think that's where, well, we're good at it. It's like you do have to be good at that because
Yes.
that's the skill.
Yes.
And talking about
Yes.
owning what we're good at, you've been recently, and I really admire this. You've been owning your desires, and this is super recent. I think you posted this like yesterday,
Yeah.
and you said, and I quote, "Owning my desires. I want to make bucket loads of money doing something that changes the world for the better. I want to fulfill my creative potential and explore as many of my gifts and talents as possible. I want to have children and raise them to be kind and conscious humans who love life and love themselves. I want my kids to have the best example of a healthy relationship and experience true love at home. I want to continue to travel the world and meet more humans that remind me that good people are everywhere and we're all the same. I want to meet Oprah and tell her how grateful I am for who she is for me. I want to try ayahuasca. I want to take both of my parents on a vacation I pay for and spend quality time asking them questions about their lives to get to know them more as fellow humans. I want to feel liberated as a woman, to be an example of self acceptance and self love no matter what I look like as I age. I want to adopt a child. I want to have a humongous fluffy dog. I want to learn how to cook traditional homemade meals from the elders around me to pass them on to my future children. I want to sing and dance more just for fun because I love it. I want to learn more about nature. And I want to have a home big enough to host people wherever I live and have an open, loving home. Beautiful, firstly. And secondly,
Mhm.
what inspired you to share your desires online? You commonly hear,
Mm.
even from spiritual folk, from these, more these conscious and very self-identified conscious people, around how keep your desires to yourself because putting them out in the world can somehow cause a vibrational frequency that then negates its probability of happening and then also allows evil forces to harm it. Now, I think that those takes are a little bit it's like Santa. It's like, okay, sure,
Right.
maybe. um,
Definitely, if you believe that.
yeah, it's
They
like if you
definitely
believe that,
they definitely can if you believe it.
yeah. So what inspired you to own your desires and post them publicly online?
Wow, to be honest, I'm hearing you say them and I'm like, why did I even write that? Like, yesterday I was so in my head trying to figure out, like, I'm shifting some things in my business. I have decided that I want to prioritize making money. And that's something that I had a hard time doing for a long time, especially under the title spirituality and spiritual work. And recently I'm like, no, this is not serving me or anyone or the world that I'm holding on to this belief. I do great things with money. Money is great. And it actually provides me with a lot of sense of security and peace and abundance to serve this world, honestly. So lately I've been, like, really getting clear on that. And last night I was just really in my head, or I was actually brainstorming about this course that I want to create to help people, conscious people and artists, use social media. And all of a sudden I just, like, felt this feeling inside of me where I was like, I just want to make money doing something that I believe is genuinely making a positive impact on the world. So I just started writing it on my story, like, directly. And then another desire came, and another desire. There was no thought involved in this list. Like, genuinely, I put zero thought into it. I had never written these down before. And lately I've just really been asking myself, what do I want? What are my desires? Like, what do I truly, truly want? I've been really trying to do some work on sitting with this vision of reality that I want, but I didn't even know what I want. I was like, what is it that I want? what do I want? And every answer I gave, I wasn't fully convinced when I would try to think about it intellectually. But for some reason yesterday, when I claimed that desire about wanting money, it like opened a portal to other desires, is what I'm realizing now. That when we're shamelessly owning something that we already know we want, it opens a portal to the other things. It gives us so much more clarity. But people are first afraid of step one, which is admitting they don't know. And then once they start to feel like they do know, admitting the things that they do know they want, because there's shame involved, there's judgment involved. They shouldn't want that. They should want that, whatever it is. But once you walk down this path of radical honesty with self, wow, it opens a portal. So that's what happened to me yesterday. And I'm realizing that as I explain my answer. But also, why did I post it online? Because I really just felt like I want to inspire other people to do the same, not to post it online, but to just claim what they want shamelessly. Own it. There's nothing wrong. I think anyone who read that list, no one left it thinking, oh, she's such a selfish, evil, greedy person.
No, that's exactly
everything on
what I
that list
thought.
was.
I'm just kidding.
and if they did, that's
Yeah,
their
I'm
problem.
teasing.
But really, like writing that list, I realized like, wow, I really want to do good things with my money. I really want to live a good life for the right reasons. Like I really am a good person. Why was I so afraid of admitting that to myself? Like, so when I got clear on the money thing, when I was willing to admit that, I wanted, because I had a long time. I grew up with a wealthy father and I had resentment for money, and I've been financially independent and hyper independent in the sense that even if I needed help, I wouldn't ask for it. And I wouldn't take it because I'm like, fuck money. Money is the root of all evil. It killed the family. It killed my life. My dad used this as a tool for power over me my whole life. Like coming back to like making peace with money and wanting it. I guess something about admitting that to myself yesterday just opened this whole world of, oh, and I also want this and this and this, and this is what I would do if I had it. And then I would do that. And then it was amazing. So I just shared it, just
You said something earlier, and
impulsively.
I think it reflects what you're saying right now. You said social media is neutral. In fact, all things are inherently neutral. And I think that's what it is, right? Is money in of itself is neutral, but perhaps your relationship
Neutral.
to it was holding resentment to it because of the experience with your father. The moment that you freed yourself of the limitation of resenting money because of that relationship, suddenly it freed you the reality of your desires in a larger scope. And I think that's a lesson that we can all take, right? Which is, it's not beneficial to shame yourself for having beliefs or desires or things that you want that, let's say, aren't, that you don't think are aligned with like the most spiritual version of yourself or whatever ideal you're holding yourself to, because it's that shame that will create more problems in your life than simply just
So many.
accepting what you want. And ironically, what I bet is, in accepting what you want, let's say if at first it was something as, I just want to make a lot of money and there was nothing else. In simply accepting that, you would give your mind and your body and soul permission to explore what that means beyond a
Right.
surface level. And perhaps that would give one the freedom to be like, oh, well, I guess I really I have these values around security and this. And suddenly that allowing yourself to accept a desire gives you insight into who the fuck you are and into, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that one of the things that I have realized recently is what has blocked me from many of my desires is the idea that they're not compatible with living a spiritual life. And letting go of that title, wow, I cannot explain to you how much I feel like I've lost weight on my soul, not needing to fit everything into this idea of spirituality, okay, which isn't even true spirituality. This idea of spirituality where, oh, like I should want to grow my own vegetables. No, I actually don't. I actually want to order them online and have that convenience. Is that okay? Like, can I still be spiritual? Like, is that okay if I'm still spiritual and want to order my vegetables on the internet? Thank you. So, so that's a little extreme. I actually like to go to the farmer's market, but still,
No, it's
but still, I'm making a point here where it's like, I saw how more and more I was buying into a version of my life that was only under what other people have convinced me spirituality is. And even now I've lived a very remote, slow paced life for the last 6 months in the desert of Morocco, in a village in Greece, like on very remote places. And I started to create this narrative that like city life is not consciousness, and is you can't be conscious in a city, and it's the matrix and blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like feeling called to live in a city again for a little. And I'm like, can I give myself permission to stay a spiritual person, whatever that means, and live in a city? Yes, I can.
I
Yes, I
think
can.
I think in fact it's the greatest test for someone who, like us, who claim we're spiritual people. I think
Yes.
living in a city is like such a wonderful test. It's like let's see how you can do in that environment, because that's like, it is more stimulating. There are more people who are not spiritual and who in fact think it's silly and whatever.
Yeah.
Can you still continue to show up with authentically embodying your values and your truth and your understandings? And if you can do that, well, then you've kind of like proven, like, yes, I have inner authority and I'm integrated in my own power. But if you slip up and stuff, I don't necessarily think that's the city's evil. I go, looks like you are more of a product of your environment than a product of your own creation. And that's something
Yes.
you have to look into, because I
Yes.
truly believe, like, wherever the hell I go, like whether it's in Costa Rica, Nasara, where I was like last week for my birthday, or here in Toronto, I'm the same. Like, and like people are always like, oh, like it must have felt so different there. I'm like, no, I mean, it was a beach, it was like sun, like it was very chill. I was on vacation, but I am this anywhere, man. Like I'm taking
Yes.
I carry this. This isn't like, I don't like let go of my spirit because I'm in the city, or like suddenly
Right.
forget that. No. And I think it's
And
a beautiful realization.
I think there are environments where it's like harder to hold that energy and that awareness. For me, definitely like in LA, just what is the main focus of the people around me and the culture around me. It took more effort for me to stay a light, to be connected to myself. And it's okay to notice that. But that doesn't mean that I have to make this generalization and judgment on me
Mm-hmm.
not being able to be in a city ever again in life. I also love the quote, dog is in the sunset. Sorry, dog. God is in the sunset and he's equally in the dog shit on the street in the city. So like
Hell
really,
yes.
like God is not like only in the beautiful, pretty things. Okay. God is in everything. And God is in the concrete buildings and the skyscrapers, and God is in everything. So it's either God is in everything or God is in nothing. It's not like we can be like, this is godly and this isn't godly. It doesn't work that way, right? So
That's exactly it.
yeah. Once you recognize that, you realize also all parts of you are parts of God, right? Not there isn't like there's no such thing as like the spiritual Taylor and the non-spiritual Taylor. It's we're all just we're all spiritual and it's all of us is spiritual.
Let's lean into that spirituality
Yeah.
for a moment. Obviously, for anyone listening, they probably have heard of spirituality and in some undefined terms, or perhaps they're familiar with Hindu philosophy, perhaps it's Buddhism. For you, Taylor, obviously, you've read a lot of books, similar books to me. I know we both share A New Earth as being a pivotal book in both of our own spiritual journeys, in making us, I think, at least totally aware of the concept of ego in such a way that we recognize, oh my goodness, that thing isn't necessarily who I am. And in fact, I've known that, but I just haven't. It's like I grappled to understand how.
Yeah.
Now, beyond that, how are you practicing spirituality? Are there some traditional philosophies that you learn from, or is there meditations that you like? What are the spiritual practices that highlight your spiritual life?
Wow, this is a good question because I think in the beginning of my journey, I definitely did what other people told me were spiritual practices. And I find myself slipping into that. I'm like, I should go walk on the grass barefoot because it's spiritual. Um, I should go meditate because that's the way. And again, I'm in a stage in my life right now where I'm letting go of all of these concepts and letting myself just allowing. I think the art of allowing myself to be, allowing myself to just fully immerse myself in whatever experience I'm in, whether it's eating the meal and being fully present, whether it's being present in a conversation with someone, whether it's seeing past other people's, superficial layers that they're displaying to me. For me, that is my spiritual practice today. It's really to let go of the fact that there are spiritual acts and non-spiritual acts, spiritual people and non-spiritual people, is to really see God in everything and really see every single thing I do as an opportunity to connect with the divine and make it divine. So again, normally I would say, yeah, I meditate and I sit outside and I spend time in nature, which is true. But again, like the intention behind why you're doing something is more important than what you're doing. And if you're doing it because someone on TikTok told you to meditate, or because you feel like you have to do that in order to connect, you are losing the truth, which is that you can connect right here. If you just pay attention, if you just slow down, you can really, really connect in every moment. So yeah, I still do meditate and do those things when I feel like it, and still regularly. But again, I'm trying to let go of, does this speak true to me? Is this what I want to do? Or was I sold this? And I'm really learning that when I let go of needing to do things, I start to pick back up the things that are for me, truly. It's not that you're going to let go of them forever, but really, if you just give yourself space to be like, am I meditating every day because someone told me that that's the way? Or do I really feel connected to this practice? And you will see that if you let go, some things you will not pick back up. Other things you will feel are essential to you and are more personal to you and you feel connected to deeply.
What's funny for me to hear in that is that you are moving a lot like a Zazen Buddhist, the Zen Buddhist rather. Like that is in essence what they try to do is, how can I let go of the need to do anything and just totally do whatever it is I'm doing so wholeheartedly that that is in of itself the most spiritual and godly thing, whether that's
Amen. Never heard about them.
yeah, whether it's wiping my ass or meditating for 3 hours. And what they call it purposelessness. Instead of, like you said, what's the intention? Well, I have to do this because of this. They practice what you, it's awesome, which is why I think you're such an amazing spiritual being, because I'm like, you embody like the highest intellects, but you do, it's not like, but like it's not like you read a book to then do it. You just found that on your own. You're moving,
which
like,
again is in everyone, right? Like that's the truth. If you're just like doing the thing that feels the most true to you, you eventually get to those highest levels of wisdom and intellect and enlightenment, because it's our nature.
Exactly.
Anyways, continue.
No, yeah, that our natural evolution as beings is towards these spiritual light beings, and that is the natural progression of consciousness insofar as we allow it to progress when we don't hold the limitations. And you truly, I love it. You move through this, you're moving through purposelessness, and within that you're connecting to God. And I mean, there's even this thing where to choose the next like leader in like the Buddhist community, like for them to truly understand the nature of what they're trying to teach, like the teacher, he'll like grab a flower, right? He like pull it out, and like one of them writes like a haiku. Yeah, like they're all trying to like figure out what do they have to do to prove that they are like the next leader. And one guy goes over and he eats the flower, and it's like, you're going to be my successor. And the idea behind that is like, because he realizes that the world has no like, there's no rules, there's no actual intention. Everything is conceptual. What makes this a cup? It's like your idea of it makes it a cup. And like, if you can prove that to the master, aka by like eating the flower he just grabbed, because it's like, well, why wouldn't the flower be food? Who gives it? And doing this kind of absurd act within it, you've embraced the nature of reality as it really is. And the same thing is being embraced in moving through purposelessness. It's like, well, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do and whatever feels right. And in moving like that, I am no longer limited by the Maya, by the illusion of reality.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's really, really cool. Taylor, what are you working on? Where can people find you? What is the message that you're trying really hard to get out there? If you could break it down,
Yeah, I guess I'm working on at the moment a program called Soulcial Media, where basically I'm going to help people create from the soul. I do believe that our deepest desire as humans is self-expression and being of service, and social media gives us a tool to do both of those things if we know how to use it as a tool. And that is what I'm currently feeling really, really passionate about. I feel fire inside of me where I feel like I have all the tools and experience and I also the spiritual guidance that can complement the creative journey for people. And I feel like so many people are sitting consuming content all day, wishing they could share, put themselves out there, whether it's for their business, their art, their ideas, their thoughts, just to even just release things to the public is so healing. I'm
So
sure you've
healing.
experienced this too, where it's like you share this part of yourself that you're working through and it just feels like poof, like I just like let this out there and let it go. And I've given it meaning and other people have taken it and done something with it. And it just feels so true. It feels so right. It feels like that's what it's supposed to be, this shared experience. Anyways, that's what I'm feeling super passionate about. I'm working on that now. And that is it for now. Really, I feel like my personal journey right now is my main focus to just kind of let myself redefine everything that I thought I couldn't let go of. And it's been scary and exciting. So I feel like I'm very much in like I call it my tadpole era. Like I'm in I'm in my tadpole era. Like I'm not yet a frog, but like I'm very much like moving through the motions and just letting it be, just accepting it, riding the wave and
You're
sharing.
Taylor from the Life by Taylor podcast, the creator of social media or social school,
Social media,
social social
the
media.
method, the school,
I love
the
it.
movement, the
The
revolution.
movement.
I don't
Oh,
know.
I love that. You are truly an inspiration in my own life. You have been since I met you. Someone that I've felt like I could come to for advice because of our parallel journeys in many ways, and just look at your life and the way that you've showed up online truly has been something that, because you've done it so well and so authentically for so long, has actually caused a lot of changes in the way that I showed up online, and the way that I was willing to show up, and the way that I was like, dude, I like poetry, like just put your poetry out, and like people liking that, whatever it is, instead of limiting myself again to the concepts around, oh, I have to be a counselor guide, or wait, no, I have to be a coach. Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. Also share all parts of you. Like,
Yes,
why
exactly.
not?
Thank you for coming on, Taylor. You're a blessing. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. So much love.
Cheers.